Hello, and welcome back to my channel, Civil War Reports. I am your War of the Rebellion reporter, Brian Thomas Kopak, and today is a first time for Civil War Reports as I am doing an episode on the post-war era. If you'll notice behind me, you see a very nice cottage, and I am on Mount McGregor here in upstate New York. I've returned to my home state to film an episode on General Grant's final days, and they were spent at the house behind me. Before I get on with this, let me take you on a brief tour of the house. Currently, if you wish to come visit, it costs $12 for adults and $5 for children. And I will tell you, it's kind of dark in there, so I don't know how well this is going to look, but I will show you as best I can the inside of the house as well as the grounds outside. You can get an idea of what this lovely cottage looked like. And I got to tell you, it's really a time capsule coming here because it really does look like it did the day Grant died in 1885.
In this case, a number of interesting things. Original copy of the memoirs are not rare, but they're always 2 volumes. You could buy them with different bindings at different prices. Those are samples of the bindings. That's a salesman's sample. This is a price list. If you come up here, this won't bite you.
Okay.
This is a price list from 1885. Tells you what it would cost. Next to it is a advertisement. You notice it says General Grant's book, written by himself. Interesting they say that, because at the time, many people were saying that General Grant didn't write that memoir. He was too sick. He wasn't a writer. Mark Twain wrote it. But the fact is, he wrote it. We know that for a fact.
Samples of Grant's notes that he would write. He slept on 2 chairs pushed together. These were from his home in New York City. I am now in the room where General Grant died. This is the bed, the actual bed where General Grant departed this world. His wife Julia was sitting in a chair next to him. And when he died at 8:08 in the morning, his son Frederick stopped the time on the clock that was in the room. This is a colorized version of a famous photo taken of the Grant family shortly after they arrived here in June of 1885. Well, this is the outside of the General Grant cottage. It is absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Side view of the house. And this is the back of the house. Just want to let you know that for the source of this episode, I used mainly this book, Grant's Final Victory by Charles Russelin, I hope I pronounced his name right, Flood. This was an excellent book, and I'm going to explain to you why this book was so important to me. But this is the primary source that I used. And basically, you know, they do say that bad things happen in threes, and for General Grant, the bad things started on Christmas Eve, 1883. For it was on that day that he slipped on some ice and fell. He re-injured an old horse riding accident he had, and he probably broke his hip, by all accounts. X-rays, unfortunately, were not invented yet, so we really don't know for sure, but he probably did break a hip, and he was bedridden for several weeks, and he did not get out of bed until sometime in February. He was in excruciating pain, and after that, he really, this injury would affect him for the rest of his life. He could not really walk without assistance from other people, holding on to people, and or using a cane. But at this point in time in his life, Grant was an extremely wealthy man. For Christmas 1883, he gave his 4 granddaughters $2,500 in savings bond, and I did a quick conversion calculator figure, taking that from 1883 to 2023, and that was about the equivalent of giving each one of his granddaughters $76,000 in 2023 money. But nevertheless, he was a very, very wealthy man. He and his son were partners in a financial firm called Grant and Ward. Grant really didn't know much about money and finances, but he was asked on because they felt that having the General's name added to the firm would really add a great level of prestige to the firm. So it was General Grant and his son Buck, which was Ulysses Grant Jr., along with two other gentlemen, Ferdinand Ward and James Fish. And, well, in early May of 1884, here comes strike two. Grant believed he was a very wealthy man. Unfortunately, his partners, Ward and Fish, got involved in what would be considered by today's standards a Ponzi scheme, and they really swindled a lot of people out of a lot of money. And how do I put this? On Sunday, May 4th, 1884, Grant was informed that if his investment firm could not come up with $250,000 by Monday morning, they were going to be pretty much bankrupt. And that is, well, basically what happened. And almost overnight, Grant went from believing he was a very wealthy man to being a very poor man. And Grant was a very, very sincere man and a very honest man, and he wanted to pay back all of the investors who lost money. But he could barely at that point in time afford to pay his own bills. That summer was not like any other summer in recent years for the Grant family, and they went on vacation to their beach house in Long Branch, New Jersey, and it was there that strike three would happen. Well, strike three would come on June 2nd, 1884. Grant, one of his favorite fruits was peaches, and on that day he bit into a peach down in Long Branch, New Jersey, and he felt this incredible, excruciating pain in his throat. And he was kind of hoping it would go away. Like, you know, everybody else, you get an acre of pain, you know, it won't last, it'll go away. But unfortunately for General Grant, the pain never went away. And unfortunately, this may have proved fatal. It's kind of hard to tell from, you know, 140 years later. But he waited to go see a doctor, even though his wife, Julia, insisted that he do it. He wanted to wait till his personal physician could see him. Unfortunately, his personal physician was in Europe, and things did not improve. Finally, I don't know if this was Grant having foresight or whatnot, but he did in September of 1884 fill out his last will and testament. And it wasn't until a month later that he met with a specialist, a Dr. Douglas, and Douglas examined Grant's mouth and throat, and, well, the diagnosis was not good. And Grant, I guess Grant was a very brave man, because he just looked at the doctor and said, "Is it cancer?" And the doctor didn't lie to him and said, yes, you have cancer. It really wasn't known at the time, but I'm sure the cancer that he got on the back of his tongue and on the roof of his mouth was probably, no doubt, caused by his penchant for smoking cigars. And at one point I read in another source that Grant smoked up to 20 cigars a day, which means pretty much every waking moment of the day he had a cigar either in his hands or in his mouth. One report said that he just absolutely reeked of cigar smoke, and that had to have contributed to his cancer. At the time of Grant's diagnosis, his main home was on East 66th Street in New York City. He lived very close to Central Park, and he tried at first to keep the cancer a secret. He also knew that he was broke, destitute. He was dying. He knew that. He knew it was incurable. And his thoughts turned to, well, his love, that being his family. Here at the visitor center of Grant Cottage, there's a quote on the wall that says his two favorite loves were his children and his horses. And that really was General Grant. He loved his family and he loved his horses. He knew he was dying. He knew he was broke. And he thought, how can I provide for my family after I'm gone? And he decided to start writing his memoirs. It started off with some simple journal articles for Century Magazine, and for the most part, they weren't very good, until it was suggested to him that he start to make them more personal. Instead of making them sound more dry and maybe military sounding, he was suggested to him that he throw himself into it. And once he did that, they noticed that his writing and his style got much better. And Grant, who did not want to write his memoirs because he didn't think anybody would want to read what he had to say, really threw himself into his work, really committed himself, mind, body, and soul, to make these memoirs great. And he was also friends, since 1869, with Samuel Clemens, who, by the way, fought briefly for the CSA, but by 1869 was going under his pen name, Mark Twain. And Mark Twain helped secure that Grant's memoirs, that a good amount of the royalties would go to the Grant family after he passed away. So Grant really, really put his heart and soul into this, but news got out, and the man who wanted privacy so he could write these memoirs began getting inundated with well-wishers, either by them outside of his window or by mail. And I want to point out two particular, well, one group of people and one person that also sent words of sympathy to General Grant during this time. One were former Confederate soldiers. They remembered the generous terms that Grant offered Lee at Appomattox, and they did not forget him. And Confederate veterans, the same people we are vilifying today, sent condolences to General Grant. And the other one, and I was very surprised to read this also, Jefferson Davis. Yes, Jeff Davis himself even wrote words of condolence and sympathy and well wishes to his former adversary. Grant was dying. Everyone knew that. His cancer was getting worse and worse. It became difficult for him to even swallow. He said even swallowing water felt like he was drinking fire. It burned his throat that much. And he began to speak less and less because even talking would hurt his throat. So he began writing little memoirs, or sorry, little notes on pieces of paper to hand to people for whatever he was thinking. And unfortunately, there was an incident of somebody who tried to take advantage of General Grant in his most vulnerable time here. And believe it or not, that person who took advantage of him was not a former Confederate, not former President Jefferson Davis, but somebody who served on his staff during the war.